Hi, Greg Glenn here, the desk doctor and CTO at Pulse Signal Solutions. Today we have Nate Hinkle from Sacramento Regional Communications. He is the licensee that operates the 800 meg trunk radio network that supports all public safety and virtually every other three-letter acronym user in the Sacramento County region. And he's going to talk a little bit about why we cannot just allow a signal booster to be placed in every building that doesn't have radio coverage. He's going to talk a little bit about the physics. He's going to talk about a little bit about the problems that they've experienced because of that philosophy, and maybe how we can get to a better place rather than trashing our radio networks. We need to be a little bit smarter about what we're doing. Anyway, so thank you for joining us today. And here is Nate Hinkle, Sacramento Regional Communications.
Okay, I think hopefully everybody can hear me and see the Sacramento County logo up on the screen here. My name is Nathaniel Hinkle, and I'm the Telecommunications System Supervisor for the County of Sacramento, California. I want to welcome you here today, and I want to take the opportunity to thank NAPCO and Pulse Signal Solutions for giving me this opportunity. And I think what Greg is touching on here today has affected our organization throughout the years here. I've been with the county now for over 10 years, and prior to that, I worked for a local organization that helped support the county, and I did a lot of work for them prior to that. So what we'll do is I'm going to start the presentation that I have for you with just some recorded audio of a situation that occurs every day on almost every public safety system throughout the country. And the calls vary, of course, but these are all 911 related, life-saving calls. Everything from life-saving efforts all the way down to your local government operations. And it really speaks to how critical communications is and how critical the radio system is. So let's listen to this.
Okay, why don't you hold your position and back out at this point. 111 dispatch, go ahead and divert Public Works to North Fork Road.
Divert Public Works to North Fork.
While you're on the phone with MedCom, let them know there is a camper that is stranded inside Fish Bend, so we'll need an immediate response with a brush rig to clear the road in.
Okay, as you can hear, these types of communications occur every day, and our first safety, our first responders really depend on the radio system to work, and that's in building and outside of the building. When they push that push to talk button, they expect somebody on the other end to understand them. And so, that's why this issue is so critical to me and to the people that I work with here in SRRCS. SRRCS stands for Sacramento Regional Radio Communication System. And to give you a brief history, about our organization and where we are, Sacramento County is centrally located in a portion of California in between the Sierra Mountain Range and the Pacific Coast. It is where the state capital of California resides, in the city of Sacramento. We're centrally located in the breadbasket of California, and our county encompasses 1,000 square miles of varied terrain. We live in one of the most agriculturally productive states in the union and have a wide variety of technology-based and governmental economies in this area. We serve a population of approximately 1.5 million people in the Sacramento County area, and that actually increases in the surrounding counties. We have El Dorado County, Yolo County, Placer County, San Joaquin County. And again, our radio system just doesn't end at the borders of Sacramento County. It extends out into other counties. And so we have all kinds of interoperable communications that occur on our system on a daily basis. And, our first responders really count on this to work properly for them. So the original 800 analog system, 800 megahertz analog system that we had was a NIPS in the NIPSPAC band. It was a Motorola SmartNet simulcast system. And this was installed both for the city and the county of Sacramento starting in around 1995. The overall architecture consisted of two subsystems: the city subsystem, which was 24 radio channels, and the county subsystem, which was 25 radio channels. And then in 2015, we started our migration to the 30-channel Motorola simulcast P25 system. The system was completed in 2019, and all of our subscribers were migrated to the new system second quarter of 2020. And we'll go through kind of what my subscriber base looks like. We're pretty diverse. So this shows you basically in brief, a little diagram of our current system. We have a microwave backbone, which we'll be upgrading in the next couple of years to a fully IP-based backbone. But our main P25 site has a 10-site, 800 megahertz trunk simulcast. We have our Twitchell ARS site, 700 meg, 12 channels. Our Davis site, which was just recently added, that's our 2-site, 800 megahertz simulcast for the University of California, Davis, and the City of Davis. And we also have our Folsom ARS site, from the famous Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash. And this all reports back into our controllers at our prime site. And our prime site we refer to as Brighton Heights. We share this facility with Sacramento City PD, and it's worked out very well for the developing the architecture of the system. So what kind of who's our subscriber base? Why is Sacramento County so important? Our radio system so important to our users? And it isn't just that we have local government on this. We have Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. We have the California Department of Corrections, our local sheriff's department, over almost 4,000 units on our system. City of Davis, Elk Grove PD, Sacramento International Airport, California Highway Patrol. The chippers are on here. So, we have a lot of different subscribers from a lot of different areas. Sacramento Regional Fire. We have the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, California State Parks, El Dorado Hills Fire Department, Yolo County. And this is just a very short list. We provide communications for all critical agencies in this area. They don't have enough resources to have communication systems for them throughout the county. We enhance things by that. So, what's so critical about putting a BDA on our system? And, as a licensee, it's important to understand that each and every BDA that is installed has a direct effect on the macro simulcast radio system. And if you step back for a second, what that means is that when a BDA is installed in a building that doesn't have coverage, it will directly affect the way the main system works. It becomes a part of that system. And it is so critical that it's installed properly. We are running into several issues throughout the years, and I'll describe a couple of those to you. But we're seeing approximately 3 BDAs a month installed in our area. That's 3 BDAs a month. You add that up over years, and we could have hundreds, maybe even several hundred BDAs out there. We have a partial list of what's available and what's been installed, but this is one of the things that I'll go on and describe to you first. And I care deeply about each and every one of the first responders and the functioning of our system in their daily assignments, both in building and on the street. I'm very concerned at the trend I see to put a BDA in every building that does not offer acceptable coverage for our public safety first responders. A BDA is not always the best choice in these situations. This often causes the macro radio system to degrade in many ways. And the reason I say that is that, there are system improvements that we can make on our end. We can add another ARS site, a smaller cell site, to help provide coverage in buildings. Or we can at least be a part of making those decisions. When you put BDAs that are across the street from each other or a quarter mile away, I think it's important, and I think it really is a critical thing that a licensee be involved in making those decisions. Today, that does not exist. And I know a lot of other licensees out there are facing this issue. It's been an eye-opening and enlightening situation being involved in some of the conversations and forums that I have recently with licensees such as myself, describing these BDA issues and what they've had to face, just to ensure that their first responders are using a safe radio system that'll provide the communications they need day in and day out. So the current fire code is not written with this requirement to include the licensee as the primary decision maker in these important and often critically affecting system issues. We are not even notified when a new BDA is installed in our area and receive this information through third parties. And this doesn't happen all the time. This happens regularly. I mean, I find out from several different people that a BDA has been installed over in one location and another's been installed. And there's no consistency. We try and work directly with our fire marshals and the people that certify the BDAs, but it's not working well. And this has got to stop. This is very critical. And, as a couple of examples, as a licensee, 3 years ago, we had a situation on our system. We have what Motorola calls a zone watch. And the zone watch on a trunk system is a display that shows on your computer what channels are active and what channels are disabled and the current state of your system just by looking at the screen. And we noticed one afternoon that suddenly we were losing 3 channels. It started migrating across our channels. It would go from channel 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. Suddenly we had 6 channels disable. And I thought, wow, that's not good. I mean, there wasn't a problem with our equipment, but the migration down through the 800 megahertz spectrum on our NISVAC spectrum, we knew pretty much instantly that we had a spurious BDA. And where was it located was our first thought. How do we solve this issue? Is it affecting our users? And we got the team together. We deployed into the field. We looked at which sites were really being affected the most, and it took us 2 weeks to track this down. And the reason it took us 2 weeks is this wasn't a constant issue on the BDAs. It would come and go. It happened for 15 minutes to an hour, maybe 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. But by the time you deploy your resources in the field and you start tracking this down and you triangulate on the position, suddenly it would go away. And then we'd have to start the next day or when it really came back up again. And sometimes that was middle of the night. And, it was just after 2 weeks, we finally found this intermittent signal. It was located in a large business complex in a very small room on the second floor labeled electrical. And of course, nobody in the building knew this existed because the maintenance personnel didn't have a clue. We unplugged the unit. Instantly, we saw the source of the problem go away. We were excited to find this. When you put that much time and effort into something like this, it's so critical. It was a real joy to put that off the air. And then approximately 6 months ago, a little over 6 months ago, our team noticed that once again, we had channels that were disabling themselves on the system, anywhere from 2 to 3 channels. It was intermittent. And some days it was on for a couple hours, some days it wasn't. A couple of days into noticing this, I received a phone call from the communications manager at a local state university. And he was asking me, he said, hey, are you guys doing anything with the radio system, in our area that would affect anything? We're really having a lot of poor coverage issues in our area. I said, no, the system hasn't been touched. We have been noticing some strange things with channels disabling. And he said, you know what? Even our local conventional repeater that our PD uses is experiencing coverage issues and intermittency. And I thought, boy, that's a real problem. They have a local repeater there. But that also gave us a clue as to where the source might be coming from. We knew it might be a few miles away from that. So, we pulled out our equipment, started tracking it down. One of our technicians finally found it on ground level. And again, you can see this on our sites, but when you get to the ground level, you don't always see the signal right off the bat. So this might take several days of driving around the county just to see the signal, because sometimes these aren't terribly strong. Throughout the county, it might go 2 miles out and you finally hit it. I got 1,000 square miles to cover. So one of our technicians found it on the ground. We pulled our team in, we went into Sacramento State, and lo and behold, a vendor had just recently commissioned a BDA on that site, and it was not properly optimized. We had basically several BDAs in that area that were interacting with one another. When you install one BDA and it's literally 500 feet or a quarter mile away from another BDA, and then you got a third one in the mix, when a radio keys up, these can all interact. And especially if they're not, especially if the vendor's not even aware that those BDAs exist. This is why it's so critical for the licensee to be involved in making these decisions about where these go. I literally have dozens more stories like this of BDAs and significant issues throughout the years. So if you look at Sacramento County as our system as a whole that includes BDAs, that changes the drawing here. So as BDAs are installed throughout the county, and depending on their location, they can affect different sites, they can affect different areas. And in my example here, we have basically BDA 1, 2, and 3, but then we have BDA to the nth. And again, in our county, I know we have several hundred BDAs out there, and we probably only know about half of them. We're very fortunate that we don't have more problems, but we are seeing an almost exponential problem occurring here in the recent years, because as Sacramento grows, and it's a growing economy here, more buildings are going up, more people are moving in, and more BDAs keep getting installed. And again, that's not the best solution. So one example of the audio on our system, since we're a P25 system, we're all digital, and this is the way mouse pointer went. This is the way the communication should sound on our system.
B truck plate 2142 David Union, 2142 David Union, Steel only.
So that sounds very loud, clear, perfectly readable and understandable. There's no background noise in the digital environment. That's both good and bad. Moving from the analog world, you're used to a little bit of scratching and popping, but that usually doesn't exist at all in a P25 system. So if we go over here, let me find my mouse pointer. This is where a BDA causes a problem for our system, or any interference for that matter. Let me get that audio up for you here.
102 Dundee F Frank 3 F.
So it's just about unreadable. I mean, it literally, what kind of information did that guy need, in a public safety situation? If they're calling for shoot or no shoot, what would you rather hear? Do you want to hear something that's loud and clear?
B truck plate 2142 David Union, 2142 David Union, Steel only.
Or do you want to hear something like this?
Dundee F Frank 3 F.
So the point that I'm trying to drive home here is that as a licensee, I try to provide the best communication system that money can buy, basically for our first responders and for everybody from first responder down to local government. And I need the help of those officials, the FCC, the firemen, the fire marshals. Everybody needs to get involved with putting the licensee on these critical decisions. We cannot continue to install a BDA in every building that does not pass a signal coverage test.
Do you believe that the FCC BDA registration site could be utilized as a tool by licensees to be able to mitigate some of the issues with other installed sites?
Yeah, and herein lies one of the problems. So type A BDAs that are installed anywhere do not have to be licensed. So they don't even have to go through the FCC to license this. So a type B BDA, which Greg will get into some more later on in probably the next session or so, those have to be legally licensed. So if the FCC required all BDAs to be licensed, that would help track these down. Again, type A BDAs are not required to be licensed at all. And that's the type that seems to be the preferred type people install throughout our system locally.
One of the questions, and I think this one would be a perfect one for Nathan, as long as Nate, you're still on here. The question is, would it be the jurisdiction's responsibility to determine that other BDAs are too close? And if so, what is the solution?
So from the standpoint of the licensee, And since the FCC deems us currently responsible for any device that retransmits our frequencies, yes, at this time, that puts a huge burden on us with manpower and staffing, along with just the burden of trying to locate these BDAs that they're close to each other. Now, in an ideal world, which we currently don't have, all BDAs would be accounted for. We would have them on, let's say, a Google Earth map, and we would say, okay, I've got 3 BDAs in a close vicinity here. You can't add another BDA over here, any closer than a quarter mile or, half mile or a mile. But yeah, the way the current regulations are written, it is the licensee's responsibility to take care of the problem. And I don't think that's a reasonable, based on all the conversations I've had with many, many people, including yourself. And, until the long arm of the law writes the legislation, we're having trouble enforcing that. So we have capped our signal coming into the system at about neg 95 or less. And again, that's not necessarily up to the codes, but that's what our system needs to safely operate. And again, a cap on the gain of 65 dB makes perfect sense. There's no reason that you need any more than that in a building. And you and I have had many discussions about the math involved here. And again, we really need to see that legislation put in place locally here. I'm fighting very hard to make sure that happens.
Thank you to Nate Hinkle for stopping by today. Always very informative. And I would encourage everybody who's involved in the in-building environment to understand the licensee's job position and what they have to do, and to not try to break physics. We cannot solve in-building problems the way the fire code wants to solve them. And how it ever got to that point, I really don't know, but we really need to fix our legislation and our rules, or else, you're going to take down your radio systems. I mean, it's not a political thing. You will be in a position, firemen, fire code officials, you will be in a position in an emergency where your radio system does not work when you need it most if you continue to go down this road. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. This is Greg Glenn, the DAS doctor, and also Pulse Signal Solutions CTO. Thanks. Have a great day.